Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So I tried to do this before and I'm doing it now, and I'll explain everything in a minute. So one of my friends is doing a challenge called Blind Date with a Book, and the challenge is that you put all of your books that you want to read, like your to be read list, in a bag. You pull one out at random without looking, and then you read it and review it. And she wants this done by January. I'm on a really tight deadline, and I've been editing all of my other books and doing so many different things. I didn't think I would have time to do it in less than a month. So what I did originally was I put all of the nonfiction books in a bag and pulled one out at random. And since it was a D&D book, and since then I've kind of fallen out of D&D, and I felt like, well, I just finished editing Assassin. I may have time to do this, so I'm going to do it my very best. To do it with an act, because I wanted to do it like legitly with a fiction book. And so, but I actually just found a bunch of books on Kindle that I really would like to read. And for me, I don't get into reading very much, so I hope that I can do this. And I'm like, well, I have a better chance of pulling this off if I pick out books that I'm actually really interested in reading. Now, some of these I do have in person, but it was just easier with the ebooks mixed in on the Kindle to just write all of the book names on little paper slips, and I'm going to put them in this little thing and pull one out at random. I'm going to mix it up. We'll see how that goes. So essentially, I'm going to tell you guys the titles, and we're going to pick this out. So first of all, in some of these, a lot of these are actually from indie authors that I know or I'm familiar with or have been wanting to read for a while. So let's get into this. So the first one is Authortube. It's the book from my friend and editor, H.A. Pruitt, and she's actually releasing the 4th book in that series, February. So we'll be looking for that by the time this video comes out. There's a little bit of a plug here. She's also doing an Instagram challenge, so shout out to her, Authortube. So we're putting that one in here. I gotta get this box open. I may just put them all in at once, so that way there's like none buried at the bottom where I can't get to them. Anyways, while I open this box, so that's Authortube. Then we have Jordan's World. It's a book, a sci-fi book by my other really good author friend, Alan Stedham. He's actually writing a book right now in my Republic Chronicles universe, so check that out. I think he's got a trailer I'll link to here as a card or something, but yeah, it's really fun. So Jordan's World, I think he's got a trailer for Jordan Worlds too. I'll link that there, but that's Jordan's World. Let's see, we've got When Legends Rise. My really, really wonderful friend, Daphne, she was my first editor and helped me out so much when I was first started publishing. So Daphne Self, that's her book. It's another sci-fi book, I believe. So When Legends Rise is another one. And then we have, Princess of Undersea, another really good friend, Leslie Cons. I can't pronounce her last name, but I'll pop it up here on the screen. So Princess of Undersea, this is like a Little Mermaid retelling. I've been interested in reading that for a while, and I finally have it. Yay. So then we have 2 books from a YouTube author that I watch a lot here, The Secret Gift and The Stolen Kingdom by Bethany Adazada. I'm butchering her name as well. So those are 2 books I've been wanting to try for a while, and then these 2 I got for free from a promo thing. The Dawn of the Sorceress is one, and then Viking's Curse is another. Now, Viking's Curse is a box set, so I'll only be counting the first book in the box set on that one. So let me see if I can get this box open, pull them out, or put them all in, and pull one out at random. Oh, hey, look, I got it open. All right, so let me... Okay, see you guys. So I've got all of them here. They're all mixed up together, except for that one that just fell. Put them all in here. Now, they were sticky notes, but the sticky part went out. So I'm going to close this, not drop it, shake it up real good. And my goal is to review this by somewhere toward the end of January. And it's January 2nd right now in the AM, so it's technically the 3rd, but it's not my bedtime yet. I haven't gone to bed yet. That doesn't count. So I'm going to do this, and then I finally finished reading my Crazy Horse book I was reading for research purposes for my historical fiction book, so my time has been freed up a little bit. Plus, I finished editing my other book, Assassin, so I may actually have time to read a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to open it this way, and I am not looking. Stirring it up a little bit, and I'm just grabbing one at random. Princess of Undersea by Leslie Consati, and again, I'm butchering your name, I'm sorry, but Princess of Undersea, which is actually, I got it here on my Kindle, which is actually right here on my Kindle. So I'm going to start reading it. Fairy tale retellings are my thing. So I'm super excited to get started, and I think I'll actually leave these in here for the next time. I may try to do one of these a month. Wouldn't that be cool? I don't think I could pull that off, but all right. So this is going to be a vlog as I read Princess of Undersea and review it. So hopefully I can actually have the time to sit down and read this book and actually get into it and finish it. I'm prefacing this, Leslie, by saying that I am notoriously bad at starting books and not finishing them, and it's not the book or the author. It's literally just me. I have this problem, so I'm hoping this will be one that I can finish. So anyways, I'll check in with you guys the next time that I've actually read and accomplished something. Hey everyone! So as you guys know from watching this video, this is my blind date with a book challenge, and I put all of the books, I wrote them down, put them in a bag, chose a book because I did my ebook, so I didn't have physical books to do that with, and I got the book Princess of Undersea. Let me pull up the cover here. Princess of Undersea by Leslie Kunzati, or Kunzati, I don't know, I'm sorry I'm butchering your name, but see if I can get that to clear. I'll pop it up on the screen here if I can find it. So it's part of the Undersea Saga, book 1. So first of all, Leslie is, I would say, like an online friend of mine, and I've interacted with her many times, and so I've heard of her book, Princess of Undersea, and it's been on my to be read list for a while now. I finally bought it some time ago when she had a special, so my copy actually has some bonus stories in there, but for the sake of this challenge, I am only reading the main portion of Princess of Undersea. This does not include the bonus stories in here, so that's what my review is going to be on. So with that in mind, let's get to it. So I don't remember the date I actually chose or started the challenge and thus started reading the book. I don't think I started reading it that night. I don't remember if I did or not. So I'll rewatch the video, find out when, put it on the date here. So I started it on this date, and today is January. It's technically the 12th for me, but it's 2:16 in the morning and I have a night schedule, so I consider it to be the 11th of January still. So for the sake of this video, it's January 11th. So before I even get into my review, first of all, I try to be really fair in my reviews, mention good and bad stuff. I can't help that I'm a professional editor, so I do get very direct with my critiques, while I'm still being fair. And I also want to point out that I'm the kind of person that I can point out a lot of flaws in a book or a movie and still enjoy it. Which I have another video coming soon about Rebel Moon, because that is just exploding all over the internet, and I have a lot to say about that. But anyways, moving on. So my review, Princess of Undersea by Leslie Kunzati. And again, I apologize for any time I butcher your name in this. But first of all, it's a fairy tale retelling of The Little Mermaid. And so I was really excited for it because The Little Mermaid is one of my favorite retellings. And when you write fairy tale retellings, and I know this too, like that's why I haven't published mine yet, is because I'm too scared. You have the risk, and it's not really a risk, it's kind of like a fact, like people will automatically compare your retelling to the original tale, and your story has to hold up. And while I did enjoy this book, I feel like it's just not the kind of book that's for me because it feels more YA. And even like, I don't know what the thing is below YA, but it feels like a really fun, really interesting, entertaining book for a younger audience, and it just didn't hit me. And that's part of my problem, because I have this weird thing where I don't like reading books about teenagers. Usually characters need to be closer to my age, and so I can deal with adults that are younger than me as long as they act mature. But if you're like 18 or younger in a book and you have a character, especially if they act immature, I can't do it. Like, I tried to read Game of Thrones, and aside from all of the other issues with that saga, I cannot get into it because some of the characters are like, the main characters like Jon Snow and some of those are like way younger in the books. But that's beside the point. So that's a me problem. With that being said, I do love her writing. The writing style, the world building, the race building, the creativity, the like story in general, the concepts, like everything is really good. I feel like Leslie is a really good author. I'm interested to see what other books she comes out with, especially if she ever writes anything that's more fit for me. So I would highly recommend this. It's a really clean book. I highly recommend this to YA, people who love YA, people who love fairy tale retellings, people who, I would say this is a really good book for teenagers, high schoolers, college, like that audience, from like the YA audience pretty much. I would say this is a perfect book. Like if I had teen kids and up, like 100% this would be a book I would just like shoot their direction because it's so good for that audience. The biggest issues that I had with this book, one, and this wasn't one of the issues that turned me away, but one kind of just minor critique, the writing could have been tighter. I'm a professional editor, so I saw so many different things that I'm like, if I was her editor, I would have pointed out this and this and this. So I saw those throughout there. However, a book can draw my attention and I can ignore those things if it's not distracting. And in this particular book, I did not find it distracting, and I was still able to enjoy her writing style, even though I did catch a lot of mistakes. I did catch a lot of typos, and I did see some instances where it's just me being picky, where the editing could have been tighter. Editing Joanna here. So as I was editing this, I remembered one thing that I wanted to say and forgot. One thing that I questioned on the editing was when she mentioned the prince's age. Somebody says something like he's a score and 5 or something to that effect. It's been a couple of days since I've recorded and finished the book, so I can't remember the exact line, but there was something like that in the book. And that implied that he was 15. But when I asked my husband, he mentioned that a score is 20 years, and that would have made him 25. But based on the prince's behavior, immaturity, and just his overall, the way he acted more like a 15-year-old. But technically speaking, in the book, it mentions a score and 5 or something like that, which is actually 25 years old. But I think she meant it to be 15, not 25. And so that was kind of a source of confusion, and I'm just not sure if that was the case or not. And I mean, we could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure a score is 20 years and not 10. So I'm just throwing that out there. That was another thing that did confuse me. So back to the regular viewing. So with that in mind, I still loved her writing style, and she is extremely descriptive, and I loved how visually descriptive she is, and it really transported me into the scene. Like, I never once felt like there was a lacking of description. I always felt like visually I could see everything, and for me that's really important in a book. I hate it like as an editor, it drives me nuts when you're reading books and there's like gray space in your head, whether you can't picture a character, whether you can't picture a scenery and stuff like that. Like, gray space bothers me, but she visualized everything so clearly. And given that we're dealing with mermaids and sea stuff, she is very descriptive on underwater stuff and just sea stuff. And like when the main character, the Little Mermaid character, essentially would transport into human and mermaid, like the descriptions of that process was also super, super good. So for me, the descriptions really helped to draw me into the story, into what was going on. And despite that it's not really a genre that was fit for me, and despite some of the issues that I found with it that was more just like a personal thing, I found myself reading anyway because of the descriptions and it just pulled me into the world. And I did feel like I was transported to a new world filled with such creativity. And that's one thing that I can say. On the one hand, you have a situation where you have a retelling and you compare it to the original. And personally, for me, I feel like it didn't quite stand up, just because I disagreed with some of the choices that were made, that I felt like it was, let me get this straight. Okay. Ironically enough, like, everything that I loved about The Little Mermaid was changed in some way in this book, and that's bound to happen. Like, when you're an author and you're doing a retelling, your whole job is to take that and retell it how you would, so for me, like, if I did like my Tarzan retelling or my Pocahontas/Cinderella retelling, maybe I retold all of the elements that made that special to somebody else. And so when you retell a fairy tale, you have the comparison to the original fairy tale, and if it doesn't hold up, then that's a personal opinion. And for me, it's like, ironically enough, she did change my favorite elements from The Little Mermaid so that it didn't feel like The Little Mermaid to me. And that's the reason why I personally feel like it didn't hold up to The Little Mermaid, but only because it's one of my favorite fairy tales, and it just, what I loved about it was changed. And so that was just like a personal opinion thing. But you have that on the one hand, but on the other hand, I actually felt like she took
The Little Mermaid and made it her own and really like made some creative changes to it. And I know that you may be confused, like, well, you said that she changed it in a way that you didn't like. But as an author and an editor, I can acknowledge, especially as an author, I can acknowledge that the changes that she made were really creative. And I did like that aspect in a way that it was creative. Like, there was a lot of differences with the Sea Witch, and the concept of the Sea Witches became a whole new race type thing, the Gossamers. And honestly, like, that was really cool. I loved the intensity of the relationship between her and her father was interesting, and the war with the humans and what was going on in the human realm and the political drama between the two kingdoms. She built upon those aspects so good that I really, like, for me personally, like, that's part of one of the reasons why I was like, oh, that's kind of like more YA, but because I would have loved more with the inner political workings between the two kingdoms and the war, and like there was a lot of potential for that to be more expanded if it was like a genre that was a little bit more for adults, I guess. I don't know how I'm trying to say that, but basically what I'm trying to say very badly is that, like, I almost wanted that to be explored a lot more, but instead it kept it at this kind of surface level where I feel like she set up so many different political drama potentials for the kingdoms. I loved that. And for me, building up in the contrast between the two kingdoms was something that she did to the retelling that was really creative, that I really enjoyed. But for me, the biggest issue that I actually had was the prince. And he is so immature. I can't stand him. I cannot stand his character. And usually if you don't like a character, it's okay because the author wrote it that way. And for me, the prince is supposed to be this guy that we really love, that you're rooting for him just like you're rooting for Ariel and, you know, the Little Mermaid character. And for me, the prince is supposed to be like the hero, and he was just this immature brat, and I just could not stand it. And that's where, for me, it felt like it was more designed for YA and a younger audience. And I just couldn't stand the prince. And for me, the prince was one of my favorite characters. The aspect or idea of him. So in a retelling, the concept of him would be expanded upon. Like in the live action Little Mermaid, I felt like they actually did a good job expanding upon him and everything else. And it's not like the Disney version does a really good Eric either, because he doesn't really do a whole lot. But in this one, the prince was so, like, just immature. I just couldn't stand him. And for me, that is one of the biggest reasons why I was like, this is kind of like a genre that's like YA. It's for a younger audience. It's just not a really good fit for me. He does kind of get redeemed by the end, but it kind of felt like there was not a whole lot of build up to it. I did feel like it was a little short. And again, part of that, I think, is because it's designed for a younger audience, maybe. And so it's like there was not a whole lot of change in him, and there wasn't a whole lot to cause him to change. So, yeah. And then, where was I going with that? Yeah, so the prince was different. And I did have a lot of, like, it had a lot of, to me, they were like inconsistencies toward the end where the plot started building up a little bit, where one of the issues was like the Sea Witch. I had a lot of questions of, okay, why this and why that, and it kind of does get explained at the end. So, and then there was a couple twists at the end, that there was one twist in the end that I can't talk about that involved the prince and the princess and the hero and the villains, that I loved, didn't see coming, and kind of like redeemed his character in a way for me. It was so good, and playing off that was amazing. But again, the romance and the concept of the romance maturing the prince, like, that's kind of, we kind of like, not really predictable, but that's a character arc that I kind of saw coming, because that's kind of what you would do in a situation like this, where the prince is immature and the princess comes along and they fall in love, and it makes him, you know, it matures him, and he takes an interest in the kingdom, and yada yada. And so for me, I just felt like there was not a whole, like, they had a lot of moments together, and so their romance was believable. I mean, I get it, because the original story is like, oh, you got to fall in love and marry in 3 days, and it's ridiculous. And so The Little Mermaid is a hard story to work with when you're trying to build a workable, realistic romance, and she did a wonderful job with that. But I still felt like there was just a little bit that was just like, why is he changing? and why all of a sudden, like, one or two speeches and he's just ready to just become a prince and, like, you know, do his duty and be this mature guy when he's been this immature just brat this whole time. And there was one incident that I felt like could change him. It just wasn't clear that that incident is what changed him, which becomes the moment in every Little Mermaid where she saves his life. And so maybe the brush with death could have been an opportunity to start changing him. I don't think that was made clear that, okay, this is kind of the starting point for his change. It wasn't kind of obvious, but maybe that could have been the intention. But either way, so the ending really redeemed it for me. Like, I really love the ending. She did a wonderful job, like, making it super intense and making me want to keep reading, especially when you get to the main plotline stuff. Like, there's twists thrown in there, and there were a couple things that I did predict, but for the most part, I did, like, that one twist with the prince was really good. And there was one thing with the dad where it became this sort, it's not really a spoiler because in the beginning it set up really quickly the conflict between the main princess, Elaine, and the dad, her father, the king of the undersea, is the fact that he doesn't really pay a whole lot of attention to her. He hates her voice. He only uses it for his personal gain or whatever. And it's a really interesting conflict. But I was like trying to tell Elaine, like yelling at the book, like, dude, he's grieving for his wife. You remind him of his wife. Your voice reminds him of his wife. He can't stand it. Like, I just wanted them to be able to talk about it and just, you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of an obvious reason to me. And I'm like, I could not figure out for the life of me why Elaine couldn't see that. And even at the ending, she's like, what? You know, that's all it was? And I'm like, well, yeah, like, duh. It seemed like it was obvious that that's what his problem with her was, but she didn't see it. And I guess it's because they didn't talk, and, like, there were reasons why they couldn't talk or didn't talk about it, I guess. I also started getting suspicious of a certain character, and I predicted that. But the predictability wasn't bad. I really liked it because it was still pulled off in these ways that were very entertaining. So overall, my personal enjoyment of it is going to be, like, if I had to rate it based on how much I personally enjoyed it, I would probably give it a 2 or a 3 stars, because it just isn't my genre, and the prince irritated me so much, just the immature brat style with him. I just couldn't stand it, and it felt just kind of like a younger book, and it's just like, it's not my thing. However, the creativity, the world building, the cultural building, the political inner drama, the ending, and the twist and the plot line was really good, and it was for the most part well written, and so that would boost it up for me for a 4 star. So I'm not sure what my final rating on Goodreads and Amazon are going to be, because you have to do whole stars. My actual rating of it would be 3.5, because I do like her writing style, and like I said, the editing could have been better, the writing style could have been a little tighter. But it was just super creative, and the ending did captivate me and make me want to keep reading, and it made me want to finish it, even though this was a book I'm like, I probably wouldn't have read it without the challenge, however, and the fact that she's my friend. But like, the fact that you were able to take a book in a genre that is not normally for me and captivate me to make me want to finish it to the end tells a lot about Leslie, her writing style, and her creativity, and the way that she captivated me, and the way that her descriptions pulled me into the story. It transported me to a world of this undersea human kingdom that's trying to, like, be at risk of war and trying to kind of find peace, and, like, Elaine trying to find a bridge between those two. And that says a lot about her as an author, as a writer, and about her writing style, and I really admire that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, sounds harsh, but I just can't help but be honest about the things that I thought, and so it was a little immature for me, and by immature I mean more designed for younger audiences, but it was written in such a beautiful way. It's very clean, it's very wholesome, it is very sweet, it's very short and easy to read. And so for people who love fairy tale retellings, who love YA, or who are in high school, even middle school, I would say, and college, like, you know, younger audiences would love this. And I feel like this is a wonderful book to read, in that, especially for younger audiences, because I worry these days that there aren't too many good books for younger kids to read, younger audiences, and by younger kids I mean high schoolers, because I'm an old lady at this point, that don't have like even media for us to consume these days has one bad thing or another. You can't find something that doesn't have something bad in it. And so another thing that I really admired was that it was nice and clean, squeaky clean. I would recommend this to middle schoolers, and I don't often say that about books that I find to read. Like if I want to enjoy a book like Sarah J Maas, there's no way I would recommend this to younger kids. Like Sarah J Maas is nope, like you got to be like a certain age to read those books, and even then I don't recommend them to people. I just read them and skip over the bad parts because I can't help but read it for the good parts that I love. But so it's nice to actually have a book that I can say I liked it, and I liked the creativity behind it, and I loved the world that was created with this book, and I can recommend this to younger audiences because it is clean and it is a good story. It is an entertaining story. The ending, when you get to a certain point, for me, I feel like once you get to that point, you're not going to want to quit reading and you're going to want to keep reading. And that's when all the twists come in, and there was a lot of twists in this book that I didn't see coming that were really good. And so for me, I think the biggest drawback was just the fact it's a fairy tale retelling. So sometimes it's a hit or miss if you retell it the way that you want, and that's fantastic and wonderful. But sometimes you're going to retell the story in a way that people won't like as much as the original. And I feel like that was the biggest drawback for me. And a lot of it goes back to just the prince character. I was hoping for a lot more from the prince, and I just didn't like him. It kind of felt like this really cute teen kind of romance between the two of them because they're both teenagers. And it was just like this cute little thing. And it's like, that's great. It's cute. I can't really get into that kind of stuff. So again, really great book, just not quite the genre for me. But overall, I don't know, 3.5 stars for me is kind of where I'm leaning at. But for me, since it's more positive, I'm probably going to bump it up to 4 stars for my formal review on Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub and all that stuff. Because I review books. Reviewing books is so important. It helps the authors out. And again, I love Leslie. She's a good friend of mine online. I interact with her a lot on Facebook and my groups and stuff. And she's a good author, and I highly recommend this to people, especially if you want like this really easy, cozy, fun, wholesome, sweet fairy tale retelling YA read, then you're gonna love Princess. I don't know why I'm holding up my blank Kindle, but then you're gonna, if you love all of that stuff, then you're gonna love Princess of Undersea, and I highly recommend it to everybody who enjoys one or more of those lists, of those things I listed. So that's everything. And overall, I would say this blind date with a book is a really fascinating challenge for me because, as I mentioned before, I am super picky and I hate it. I hate how picky I am with books. I barely ever finish books when I start reading them. It's a mixture of me being an author and me being an editor and me just being picky. And the fact that I write the books that I want to read, I'm not saying I'm a good author. I'm not that confident in my writing style. My books are actually these blend of genres that most people don't like for one reason or another. I know what I like to read, and I write what I want to read, and therefore that entertains me the most. And so my books entertain me, and for the longest time I didn't read any other books but my own, because my own books were what entertained me, not because I wrote them well. And as I said at the beginning, I am capable of enjoying a book or movie while acknowledging that it has issues and stuff like that. So for me, I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, because I don't read very much. So for me, this blind date with a book is actually a really interesting challenge because it challenges me to read something new. Like, obviously, I put the books in that I only want to read or that I'm interested in, but it put me in a position to force me to read something. And originally, I tried to do this challenge with nonfiction books because I was busy editing Assassin, busy editing Immortal. I didn't have much time. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm actually going to do this. Like, get a bunch of fiction books and just do it. And it forced me to kind of open up my mind to read new things that I don't normally read. And so for me, it's a nice, really fun challenge, and I'm definitely going to be doing it again when I have the time. So that's everything. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you enjoyed this blind date with a book challenge, I haven't had any other challenges here. But I have reviewed other books, so if you enjoyed this review of Princess of Undersea, then check out my review of this really sweet romance called The Other World, and it's a really sweet, cozy romance. It's also a really easy read. Check that out. You don't want to miss it. It's amazing. I highly suggest you check out my review of it.